You there?
Okay, cool.
It's busy setting up your meeting for YouTube Live.
Says live on my end.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We live.
Cool.
All right. Good. Well, I think we're live. Hello, everybody.
Yes.
Wow. We've had to come on to our Zoom platform. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa, because we're having some internet problems on the other streaming channel. But I am very, very happy to welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa, Caleb Jade, who on our series, Memoirs of an Invisible Warrior. Caleb, it's so good to have you on our show. Welcome,
Yes.
welcome.
It's nice to be here.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. Before we go ahead, I'm actually going to ask you to start with a prayer for us just before we start the show. Are you good with that?
I am.
Perfect. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, may your name be honored. May your kingdom come soon. May your will be done here as it is done in heaven. The food we need today comes from your kindness. Forgive us our shortcomings and failures as we forgive those who live with us in this fallen reality. Don't let us fall to temptation, but rescue us from this present darkness. We honor you, God, and the importance of your Son, Jesus, who died in our place. We seek your kingdom and align our will with yours. We depend on you, Father, for our daily needs and ask for your forgiveness and protection. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you so much, and so be it. Wow. Well, Caleb, it's been amazing, and I want to just tell our viewers that obviously, for obvious reasons, Caleb's camera is off. We're very grateful for him to have his voice with us, though. So again, welcome and thank you so much. I've been chatting to you for a little while now, and I have been so interested in your story. I truly have. I think you've got such an incredible story to share with our viewers, with the world. And again, I'm extremely grateful that you've chosen to talk to us on this channel. So before we sort of get into everything, it's really good to just hear a little bit about your background, because I know you also come from an adoptive background, the normal sort of hierarchy, SRA beginnings. I don't know, maybe you'd like to start with that and just share with our viewers what your beginnings are, and we can move along as we get further.
Okay, I guess we can start with my nationality. I am half German and half Native American, which I know that's an interesting subject in and of itself. It makes you wonder why they picked that, but interesting stories all the way down this whole pathway we're on here. So,
absolutely. It is. In fact, I think I was saying on Jesse's show yesterday that, or it could have been Kerry Saint, I'm not sure. I find it extremely interesting that you'll see a lot of these families, sort of upper middle class families, will very oftentimes be adopting the First Nation kids, whether it's the Native American kids or the Aboriginal kids in Australia, African kids here in Africa. What is it about that, I mean, that you can tell us? Why, from your side, do you think that is what they're doing? Why are they targeting the First Nation kids?
in my opinion, it is definitely a bloodline thing. And there's so few of my Native American tribe left that on my reservation, there's about 10,000 of us total. That's in the entire world. So there's not many of us left. So even 50 years ago, there was maybe even less of us then. But I think that's the primary reason why they pick and choose from these tribes. In my story, most of my brothers and sisters are mostly my cousins. They're all adopted from the same families, by the same family. So
how many kids are we talking that were adopted by the same family that adopted you? How many
11.
of your 11? Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna, go straight from there then. I mean, how old were you when they adopted you? And at what point did you start, I'm gonna say, were you put into the system or got into the system? How did that actually happen for you, that you got in?
So that's kind of topsy-turvy all by itself. Before I came to them, my mother had decided to not keep myself and my brother alive, and she tried to abort us. And she comes from a very traditional family that doesn't allow that sort of thing. They wanted her to take responsibility for her actions and raise the children. But she went on her own and tried to get an abortion, which killed my brother. And I survived it, and I was born, and she just didn't want anything to do with me from that point on. So there's a lot of crazy stories that happened. I can tell you about one. When I was about a year and a half, it was a pretty cold winter, and she was more or less being forced to take care of me. And so she put me in a back room. It's middle of winter time, so where I come from, that's like -10 Fahrenheit average in the winter. Pretty cold. So put me in the back room, turned up the music real loud, and just left me. No food, no water, no nothing, just left me in the dark. And somehow I climbed out the window, or I fell out the window, and they thought I was dead the next day. They couldn't find me, didn't know where I was. So they started this massive search, and they finally found me underneath the concrete stairs with the dogs. There was a mama dog that found me outside, I guess, the night before. And she took me under the stairs and took care of me. She took my diaper off, cleaned me up, was keeping me warm, and was very, very protective. So that was an amazing story all by itself. But from there, the tribe stepped in because there was an abuse issue there. And from there, I'm not exactly sure what exactly happened, but Catholic Social Services, you'll hear that. And I say that with contempt. They got involved, and I got put into the system, quote unquote, that way. It's a Jesuit school's right on that reservation. So from there, I was bounced from home to home for a while. And my aunt, my mother's sister, decided to say that she would take me. So she took me for a few months. And I'm not sure how she knew or how she figured in on how to sell me, quote unquote. But she was offered $20,000 by these people to sell me. And that was through the auspices of the Catholic Social Services.
So you would be one of those typical, I mean, I'm not sure if you watch our interviews with Kerry Sainted or from Australia, where it really is just one of those, like kids are literally sold into the system by their parents in order to make money, and you used more as a commodity rather than some child that needs love and affection. So was that pretty much the situation with you?
Pretty much. $20,000 in 1975 is a lot of money. So
how does one equate that to the life of a child? But anyway, that's just me thinking aloud. So how old were you when you were adopted by the family that adopted you?
So the aunt that took me in, quote unquote, I say that with quotes because I say it with contempt, is she was living in a different city. She took me to that city, and somehow she knew these people. Again, not sure how, but she introduced me to them, and they took me in as a foster child first. I was 2 years old at this time. And I was their foster child on and off for about a year and a half. And then they did their business with the courts and adopted me at 4. So
What happened then? I mean, how did you, from when you were adopted by the family that adopted you, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that experience, your adoptive parents? You're saying they adopted 11 Native American children that were all really part of your extended family. I'm very interested to know what that was about. I mean, not necessarily only for you, but what was that like? I mean, the other kids must have also had a purpose. I'm just interested to know if you would know that.
Well, it was a big family, obviously, which is in and of itself a struggle sometimes, but add in abuse factor and it just multiplies by tenfold. Abuse didn't start instantly with me, but I'd already been abused previous to this in the Catholic social services system for the first 2 years of my life. Again, there was always nuns involved somehow. So there's a lot to say about that, and it's hard to know where to start, but I started to be physically and sexually abused when I turned 5, that I remember. And it was through another child in the house who was not a relative of mine, but he was adopted by the same family.
So are you saying that when you went, so you were abused while you were in a foster care situation, then adopted into this home, and one of the children in the home starts sexually violating you? No, I would imagine an older sibling.
He was 19, so
Wow.
basically I don't think that the family necessarily knew, although there's doubts about that because he got busted for molesting neighborhood children later after that. But he put me and one of my sisters through some little bit of torture, I guess you could call it, for a couple of years before he finally got in trouble for it. But as soon as that started up, I imagine that he had been abused by some of the people that got their hands on me after a while. So he was the catalyst, I think, to get me started, if you want to put it that way. And it started with some people in the neighborhood I lived in. Where I lived was very rich and affluent people, doctors, lawyers, judges, power people, right? Power players. Stepford wives is kind of order of the day there, which sounds kind of strange, but
yeah. So what happened when after you were adopted, like from moving into the abuse? Did you go to school? I know that you are a kid that was taken into the Gateway experience, where I think I would imagine from what we've heard, your gifts, your natural gifts would have been enhanced to huge degrees, right?
right.
How did that begin?
When I was first adopted, or actually when I first went to see them, I didn't even speak a word of English. I only spoke my native tongue. And not speaking English, I didn't know what they were saying for the most part. But in that short period of time that I was with them, up to 5 years old, I learned how to speak English. But I still didn't speak. So they thought that there was something wrong with me, quote unquote. They thought I was fetal alcohol syndrome. They thought all kinds of bad things that was going on with me, until they finally had me tested, and they're like, this child is brilliant. He knows more than he's letting on. I remember at the dinner table, they were all talking, and I finally asked them, "Can I have some more corn, please?" I said it in perfect English. And I hadn't learned English up to that point, so and I was able to speak with full sentences and with intelligence. So
Wow.
that's how they knew there was something different here.
Yeah. So how did you actually get to be enrolled in this program?
when I was in kindergarten, it was on a college campus that had, and this is really strange. I don't think I've ever heard of this before, but in this college, on this college campus, they had an elementary school, kindergarten through 6th grade. And in each classroom, they had 2A mirrors, and they were watching and studying us. I didn't know that. I didn't know there's people behind those mirrors. So they were monitoring us and kind of selecting, for lack of a better term, I guess. And that's when that all started. They kept several of us, about 15 of us, whom I've known throughout my whole life, separated and apart. They kept us in our own class. And it wasn't the traditional education model. Like you sit at a desk, you look at the chalkboard and the teacher does this and that. It was just like one big room with bean bags and comfort food and music in the background. It was very relaxed for the first couple of years of that schooling experience. And they called that the GATE program.
Wow.
So gateway, gate, it's the same thing.
Yeah. So can you explain to us what that meant for you, what the GATE program was for you? How did you experience that? What did they do? I mean, we understand that the Gateway program is really a series of sounds, frequencies that really are able to enhance your natural gifts in a nutshell, right? And these guys know how to do that. So how did you experience getting into the Gateway experience, or the GATE project, as you're saying? And what was it like for you? What were your special gifts? What were the gifts that they were able to, because obviously your bloodlines, we know that there's bloodlines, they always go for the bloodlines, and in your spiritual gifts as well. So what was the spiritual area in which you were gifted?
Well, I could see into the spirit. I was always seeing things. Used to scare the crap out of me when I was a kid, but instead of saying, "Oh, he's crazy," these people know to look for that, right? They didn't put me in the crazy house. They just said, "Oh, let's put him in this program over here. Let's see what he really can see." And so we had these weird nap times, clear on up to about 4th grade, where we put headphones on and listen to these sounds, and some guy talking in the background. And I know now what that was, but then it was just an interesting experience, because you'd have these fantastic dreams. And I started to see these things more clearly. Before, they were kind of in a fog, and afterwards it was like somebody sharpened the picture,
Yeah. So that's what they would then do in these programs, is literally sharpen your skills. I think that you've said it quite well, is just to sharpen your skills to see in which direction they want to take you. Is that right?
That's correct. And we were all gifted in different directions. So we weren't all just set piece one thing. Everybody was going in different directions. And we were doing advanced education by this time, far beyond.
How old were you at this point?
I'm not sure what 4th graders would be, but 7, 8. Like
yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. And you're saying that there was 17 of you, and you're all gifted in different areas. Can you tell us maybe what type of gifts the other kids had as well, and specifically what your gifts were?
Like I said, I could see. It's kind of hard to explain how I could see, but like I could see what was going to happen just a few seconds before it happened. So I was able to move fast. I was able to react in a different way than most people. They don't see it coming. I could see it before it got to me. So again, that's kind of hard to explain. Some of the ones in the class could do telekinesis. They could bend things, or they could rip a piece of paper. Some could make paper smoke, like almost catch it on fire. And these are just latent gifts that they had. They didn't implant this in them. They were just waking it up in them.
Wow.
So
Explain when you talk about latent gifts, are you talking about gifts that already exist within the child and that really just have to be woken up, right? Is that what we're saying? Because we all really have gifts. Absolutely. I do believe all of us are gifted on some level or the other. I don't know if you agree with that.
I would say that that's mostly true. Some of them can be implanted, but for the most part, we all have these gifts. And I think that you can wake them up, good or bad. You can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so you had, I mean, I'm trying to think of myself as a kid, right, at that age. I mean, that would have been so cool. I'm not going to lie. You're sitting in a classroom and the one can bend a spoon and the one can see this and the other one can start paper like fires and stuff. What else was there? What else could these kids do?
They had us levitate one time. We all had our eyes closed and they had one tape that was telling us how to float. You know, let your body just float. It kept taking us almost into a sleep-like state. And I came out of it and I fell about 2 inches back to the mat. I can't explain at all how that happened or what happened because I didn't know the mechanics of it when I was a child. I didn't know what was happening. It was actually kind of scary, but
what does actually happen then? I mean, are you more aware now? I'd be interested to know, because how does one levitate? I mean, that's always been a bit of a mystery. Are you able to explain it better now?
I can, but that's a whole other show by itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I can't wait for that show. I want to know all about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's scary. I mean, I can imagine it's being scary because it's like your kids and everybody else is doing something else, and yeah, you guys are experiencing something like this, and the people that's involved obviously has not the good intentions. So it's kind of scary. It's not exciting for how much it should be for a kid.
Well, it was so normal at that point that it really wasn't scary. The levitating thing I didn't expect. And I didn't know that it was levitation at the time. I didn't even know what to call it. They didn't say, we're going to make you levitate today, children. They just had us listen to something and then it started to happen. It was almost like a group mindset or a hive mindset.
Wow. Yes. Wow. Absolutely. All those energies coming together and kind of like stimulating each other, right?
Right. They always had us lay in a circle with our heads towards the inner part of the circle and our feet out. So I think that had something to do with focusing. Yeah.
There's definitely that circle consciousness that somehow does things, right? Wow. So when you say they, can you, I mean, at this stage, were the people that were training you in this gateway experience, were they abusers at this point, or were they just teachers? Were they really just people doing it for you? Was there anything crazy other than that was happening in these scenarios?
Beginning in the 4th grade, one of the quote teachers turned into an abuser, and she lived in my neighborhood, and there were 3 other women that joined her. Again, I wasn't versed and schooled on what to call these people at the time, so my favorite term for them is they or them. It's kind of a blanket statement, but yes, it did turn into abuse then. It was a sexual initiation into sex magic is the only thing I can describe it as. And makes me really uncomfortable to talk about it, but at the same time, it needs to be said. So
I want to just clarify this. Are you saying that the gateway experience for the kids, or for you in particular, was coupled with sex magic from older women?
Yes. And at the time, I thought I was the only child going through this, but it turns out that all of us face that at some point.
Wow.
I have a common experience. So it was like you got the humans out here who were doing their thing, and the powers that drive those humans wanted a piece of the action, I guess. That's the only way I can say anything about it, I suppose. But it was for a higher purpose. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, no, I get that. Wow, it's just very interesting, when the more we hear about these things, because now, I mean, we've been hearing a lot about the sex magic, that sort of stuff, because sex magic would really be the thing, whether it's forced or everyone's okay with it. What's the word? Sorry, I dropped out. Forget the word now. Consenting, right? There's still that point of bliss that is reached. So that would be what creates the magic. So it doesn't really matter how they get that place, they're going to get it. But it's interesting for me that what you're saying now is that the kids, along with going through this mind experience with a gateway experience, is also experiencing sexual abuse, and what you say, call it sex magic. Was that a standard thing that coupled with the gateway experience? Was it always going together or not? Was it just with certain people that maybe they were trying to push harder or get more out of? Or was it a standard thing? I know you said a lot of the other kids were, but I'm just wondering if that kind of became the norm.
Out of all the survivors of that bunch, several have committed suicide already, but we all face that sexual abuse. And for me, they used that sexual experience to intensify my gifts, to refine them more than just what the Gateway program was doing. There was an intensity to it. I don't know how much I can say here, but there was a process. It's a ritual, and it was an initiation into it. Because up to this point, we hadn't been introduced to any kind of magic at all. We didn't even know what it was, other than maybe a Disney movie or something, So we didn't know what it was. And then you add that element to it, and they kind of feed off of misery and pain. That's what they love, that is misery and pain. So you have embarrassment, misery, pain, shame. There's all kinds of things that they were exploiting. It's like their food, kind of,
Wow. Makes a lot of sense, because I mean, it's when we look at Adreno, I'm just going to call it Adreno for you because I don't want to say too much about that. But when we look at Adreno, that really is also really suffering and pain, isn't it? So it wasn't the Adreno, but would you say it's in a similar vein to Adreno?
Yes, they definitely harvested bodily fluids from us, and they used that for different purposes in that ritual. Like I said, it's a ritual, so it's not just some older lady taking a child into a room and having her way. It was very ritualistic, and I could tell you right here, but it is actually kind of hard for me to hear, and I'm the one telling you. So
yeah, absolutely.
There were steps to it, just put it that way.
Okay. How long were you doing the Gateway?
From kindergarten all the way until I graduated high school.
Wow.
Can you tell us, I know what it's obviously intended to be and what it does, but how it was for you all the way through? What were the latent gifts that you were then able to access within yourself, and where did that actually take you after high school?
Well, when they separated us from the beginning, we were a group apart. We were set apart. It was kind of I'm trying to describe it. I hate to use the word elite because I don't want to think that way about myself, but we were separated from everybody else, and we were treated differently. I pointed out Ender's Game once to you, I think, where Ender Wiggins, it's a sci-fi book. Ender Wiggins was separated from everybody else, and they treated him differently on purpose to cultivate his innate gift to lead and his tactical brilliance. Is that AC sound bothering you guys? Can you hear it?
No, you're fine. You're good. You're good.
All right. So anyway, they took those gifts, separated us from everybody else, made us different, made people almost hate us because we were different, and isolated us. So there's isolation as a factor. And we all joined the Boy Scouts, we all joined the Girl Scouts, whatever male and females do. We all played sports, we played in bands, we sang. They elevated us as people set apart, which is, at the time I hated it because I didn't have a social life like a normal child probably should have. I was always alone. So, and they wanted it that way. So as far as where it took me afterwards, that definitely plays in. We'll have to explain that as we go. There's 35 years of experiences there. So
Yeah, we'll get there. We certainly have a long little journey to walk here, but we'll get there. It's just very interesting for me that, as you say, you had this all through there, you were elevated, set apart. And it sounds to me like what you're saying already then, they were, as the elite kids or the hierarchy kids, they were already making that type of life for you so that you didn't mix with the minions or, the normal people. You're different, you're better than, you're special, right? Is that the type of narrative that you guys were raised with?
That was the mindset, actually. We were better than these other people, and we stick to ourselves. We didn't mingle, we didn't hang out with people, nothing. So it was definitely a separating wheat from the tares, for lack of a better term, I guess. But
yeah.
Except we were the baddies. We weren't the good people.
You were the baddies.
Yeah.
Why is that? Interested to know why you called yourselves that.
Well, we didn't call ourselves that. I just use that for the sake of.
Okay.
We didn't actually call ourselves anything, but we all hung out together. It was like almost, I don't want to say a gang, but you could say a gang because we didn't do anything with anybody else. It's just us. Always just us.
Yeah, it's basically like you were trained, you think you were like, you're special and you're trained to do something good, but at the end of the day, you're actually part of the bad guys and with their mission, and then realizing, I know a few superhero movies that I think like in DC Comics or Marvels, there's like a lot of those stories where they fight for what they think is the good guys. They get trained to be the superheroes, but in fact, they realize while they're battling that they're actually the bad guys and not the good guys.
That's an interesting point of view because that is kind of what that was like. I mean, we were being trained. And again, I'm trying to give a long view of an even longer story here. We were being trained to face something in the future that we were told was bad. When actually it wasn't bad, it was good. So
Wow.
There's an awful lot of nuance in there that, like I said, we could go on for weeks talking about it, just this. But in a nutshell, that's what was happening.
Wow. Yeah, preparing their armies. It's so interesting for me to again hear this. It's like, as you say, you're trained to be prepared for something in the future that was going to happen that was bad. So whatever that might be, you don't get told what it is or when it's going to happen, but you're constantly prepared, sort of like in a heightened state. Would that make sense? You're also not trusting people much, are you? I would imagine when you train like that, you must be in a state of heightened, I would imagine, even anxiety a lot of the time. I don't know. How was that for you? Just just living a normal existence in that state?
Well, since that was normal for me, it didn't seem abnormal, and it was natural to not trust anybody. You had an outer shell of trust or surface dusting of trust for people that the general public would notice or see. What they were doing is they're teaching us how to live a dual life. On the outside, we're one thing, behind closed doors, we're something else. And that wasn't discouraged, that was encouraged. Because the adults who were abusing us began to do so more prolifically as we got older. That's the first time I had to have Polaroids taken of me. I had to have one taken when I was fully dressed, fully naked, and different states of arousal. I had a number on my chest, a black number painted. Mine was number 9. And I had a paper number pinned to my shirt. And that would go on 2 or 3 times a year. And the purpose that I can deduce was now is there was a market for that out there. And they were trading us like baseball cards. So we'd be abused by different people after we had those pictures taken.
So those pictures were taken and spread amongst their friends, who then would say, yeah, that one, that one, that one.
Correct.
Wow.
And it wasn't just in that city, it was a kind of a regional thing.
Wow. You know, I always say, just when I think I can't, I mean, that seriously horrifies me, to think that people are doing that to kids. It's just beyond me. Anyway, so all throughout let's say you're up until you're 17, 18, you're going through this gateway experience. What's it actually like? I mean, what is it? Can you explain it to us for somebody who hasn't actually done it? What is it? I mean, I know it sounds and things, but maybe just explain it to the people so that they can get more of an idea of how that actually works individually.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is what happened to me, but imagine you went to sleep one day, you had an amazing dream that you had an extra set of legs. Woke up the next day, you didn't have them, but that was a cool dream. When you keep having this dream, it gets more intense and more intense. Finally, one day you wake up and you have a second pair of legs. You can spin really fast in circles. You can scare people and look funny. That's what it was like for me to find these gifts and have them enhanced, to be able to use them.
Wow. I think that must be amazing for every kid, actually, you know, because these are the things, I mean, as you say, you know, I mean, this is the reason they make comics, right? Like the Immortals or the superheroes and stuff like that. It's like discovering the superhero within you. Would that be kind of like an accurate description?
I would say so, because in keeping us separated from everybody else, it was normal in that bunch. And what we did in that bunch was kind of kept amongst ourselves. We didn't talk about this to anybody. It was like Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club. You know what I mean? Kind of a silly way to look at it, but it's very true that when we didn't go out in the backyard and practice by ourselves, we always had other adults who were more knowledgeable than us that were guiding us. But that was, I'm trying to put into words the experience as best I can. But again, all these subjects you could pick apart for weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just trying to give you a nutshell of it.
Yeah, and I know from some of our behind the scenes conversations that we've had as well, singing has been a great gift and a talent and a love of yours throughout the time. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And being musical. Mm.
I was able to play violin when I was in 4th grade. That's what I started with. Went to viola, then I played the cello, and then I went to upright bass, then I went to 6-string guitar, then I went to 4-string bass, electric, eventually up to a 5-string electric bass, and sang at the same time. So.
Wow. What else were the gifts that became more apparent as you went along? Because we know also that these guys, music and sound is almost imperative, right? For as part of the gifts for the kids to have. And that is also because of the singing and the opening of the spiritual gates, right? That they would be used for, that sort of thing. So I know that's a big one for the kids in the system, but what else? Where else did you excel?
I could basically run forever at a much quicker pace than anybody else. I never got tired. I was super strong. I was a natural at mathematics. I was also very gifted with woodworking. Sorry, there's like a flood of what I'd like to say, so it's hard to articulate just one thing at a time. So,
no, all good.
No
Take your
worries.
time.
All
No,
good,
take
yeah.
your time.
So, yeah, they put us out there. Just put it that way. They put us out there to do things. I used to sit at the kitchen table with my dad. He was a physics professor, and I used to grade papers with him when I was in 5th grade, college level physics. So
Wow.
some of
And
those
you
people got their papers graded by an 11-year-old.
Did you pass them? were you giving them Fs? Right.
According to their works, that's all I could do. My dad was fascinated that I could do that. It's like, it's like breathing to me. Music and numbers, it's like breathing. It's easy. Other people struggle with it, So that's how that was. He was always fascinated by my ability to visualize things too. I could see something, take it completely apart without touching it, and put it back together again without touching it, and then do it without anybody telling me anything or instructions.
So the power of imagination, like using the visual mind, that's awesome.
Right.
But
And
that's
something
all.
to be exploited.
Yeah.
I would imagine, I was going to say, that is really special. I mean, the fact that you could actually visualize dismantling something and see how to remantle it. And it's exactly the way that your mind perceives it. I would imagine that must have been hugely exploited. Can you tell us how they exploited that? Are we ready to go there yet, or is that further down the line?
Well, I can give you a tidbit.
Yeah.
I was able to, okay, this is what happened. When I was in 5th grade, my dad, quote, caught me out in the shop with all his tools taken completely apart and all over the workbench. To him, it was just a jumbled mess. But to me, I wanted to see how these things worked, so I did it. And he said, by the time I come back, if you don't have those all back together again, you're in trouble. About a half hour later, he came out there again. They're all back together and working. And I actually fixed 2 of them that were broken.
Grade 5. Wow.
Yeah, that's certainly sometimes.
We'll get into the arcane stuff later. Sure, we will. But they go hand in hand. So these experiences in the physical here, the gifts that we have here were enhanced, and then we were also taught other things that we didn't know we had. We didn't know we had access to. And the only reason we had access to them was either a bloodline thing or because we had these gifts. We had to be initiated into different things. And there, again, I have to say, there is a ton of stuff that we're missing by me just kind of pushing through it here. But I hate to deal with this point into something that is going to make something else seem unexplainable later, you know. So maybe after a certain point we can get into some of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's great. To as we move along, we will get more into the detail of this. I'm interested to know, and I don't really know how to ask the question, but in my mind, it's like what they saw you doing, and obviously not just you, but let's talk specifically you now, in terms of, let's say, your ability to do that, to see and visualize and all of that, these gifts. And I know you're saying later on in Arcane, you know, you were using that sort of thing as well. Was there anything else specific that they were relating to you that they were able to see in you at that stage?
What they saw in all of us gifted kids was the ability to control our dreams. We all had the ability to lucidly dream. So imagine a vivid dream that you have. Next day, it just kind of poof goes away. Well, for us, we would remember what we saw, where we were, and what we did. So it was something that they refined it, I guess, best way to say it. So lucid dreaming was a huge thing. I couldn't tell you exactly why they focused so much on that, but that was a huge thing for them.
It's very interesting you say that, because not too long ago, somebody got me to watch a movie about exactly that, and I don't remember the name. But it really is pretty much, because what lucid dreaming is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you go into a semi-dream state. You lucid, you compass mentis type thing, but your soul leaves your body, and you can travel around wherever you are. And I guess in that stage, do all sorts of remote viewing or see people, visit them, have fun, hang out, go to a party if you want, I guess, right? But you can also, in this particular dream, in this particular movie, those souls are able to go into different bodies. And then you would have a different soul in another body, and in that way they are able to control different bodies. Would that make sense?
We were never able to do that, but we could go and see things that were far away from us. My first lucid dream that was where I knew what was happening. There's an irrigation canal just down the street from our house. I always wanted to see what it was like to go down there when it was full of water. At the bottom. So I went down to the bottom of this drainage canal and saw what it was like. It was very wet. Lack of a better description of it.
But you were just curious.
Right? And then I always wanted to fly when I was a child too. I used to jump off high stairs and high things just to see if I could fly. And in these dreams, you could fly to a degree. You couldn't go. I suppose it's more training. You could go a lot further, but I never went more than maybe a mile or two. I'd go to the tops of the trees and just float across these trees and come back down again. And I always hated waking up because those dreams were actually fun to me. So they made them fun, I guess.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting? Again, I'm looking at some of these secret societies, and I'm just looking at that because part of their whole thing is your body is not fun to be in, right? They make it seem like it's much better to be outside of your body and doing stuff like that. And maybe more give us the idea that it's boring to be in the body. Does that make sense? Do you think that could be what they're pushing with that as well, all these let's fly experiences?
I think that's exactly what they're getting at. because another part of this whole adoptive family thing was they're Scottish Rite Freemasons, and what are the daughters or sisters of the Eastern Star, or whatever they call that. Shriners, they're part of all this stuff. My dad is a 33rd degree Mason, so they started to take notice. That's actually about the first time I went to lodge, was when I was that young. First time I was allowed in to see what was going on there.
Wow. So your dad, your adoptive father, right? Are we talking about your adoptive father?
Yes.
Not,
Yep.
okay. He was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason.
Yep.
And he was a professor at university, one of the universities there. So I would imagine he was a lecturer of sorts, right?
Yep. He was also a major in the U.S. Army in military intelligence. The most oxymoronic definition of anything, I think. Military intelligence.
And he was the one that got you into the Gateway?
Yep. He was, I'm not sure what part of the program he belonged to, but he was one of the very first people to disseminate that program outside of where they originally started it. He used it. He was the dean of students at that university when I was going through that program. So he had some authority there to put that program in place.
I was going to say, he obviously had a bit of clout to make things happen. And especially, I can't help but think, the amount of kids that he's adopted and put through the system, obviously there would be quite a few more that would have had these similar gifts to you, I would imagine, or their own gifts, but especially with the Native American kids that are so gifted naturally compared to a lot of other kids. That would make sense that he would have done that. And as a 33rd degree Mason, there's no doubt. And your mum? Your adopted mum?
She was a school teacher. Because there were so many kids in the house, she decided to quit that job and stay home. She started to have a childcare business on the side. So there was a lot more than just 13 kids in that household. At any given time, there's probably 30 children there. That's a lot of kids because it was a daycare, what you would call a daycare today. So
was
there
there
a supply of children?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. This seems very, very dodgy to me. Do you know of anything dodgy that was going on there? This is just a by the way question.
Oh, there was plenty.
Are these people ever held accountable? Have they ever been held accountable? Again, a by the way question.
Short of death, no. Most of these people are dead now. So
yeah. Well, okay. So I know how are we doing for time, Mornay? Are we hitting an hour yet? And okay, I know I don't want to keep you much more than an hour.
Yeah, we're on 33 minutes of recording time. Right?
Oh, okay. Recording. 33 minutes. Okay, so have we only been talking for 33 minutes? Is that what you're saying?
53. Sorry.
Oh, 53. No, I was going to say. Sounded a lot more.
It's crazy how quickly it went right now because it's just like scratching on the surface right now because so many questions.
Oh, there's so much to say. It's incredible. It's astounding.
But I really, what I wanted to do with our interview tonight is really just to give an introduction to you and your gateway experience, and just to give our viewers an understanding of what it's like for someone like yourself who has been through these programs. And obviously, as we go along, we're going to be revealing a lot more of what you experienced. But I know what a big part of your experience is being in that military. I'm going to talk to you, Yags, anymore. Military, okay. So, and obviously you had some experience there as well. And I know we don't have much, I don't want to go into that now in an in-depth way, because we will get through there in terms of some of, I know again, we can only reveal a certain amount of things, and just obviously what you're capable and willing to reveal. But maybe you can just give us a little roundup of what your career in the military was after that, because I know that was a big part of your life as well.
Well, again, they started young. In my particular case, my entire family's been in the military. So it was a shoe-in for me to be part of that whole machine, if you want to call it that. Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Royal Rangers, Young Marines. I did all those programs. And they always put the gate kids in positions of leadership. They taught us how to be leaders. And that was the point. And so we could have picked any career path we wanted, because all our SAT scores and everything else are high. We're top of the class, cream of the class, right? Most of us are valedictorians. Anyway, with the military, they came in way early. I always was around them. I used to go to some of the weekend get-togethers with my brothers to there, because some of them were reservists and whatnot. So I'd go watch them. They'd let me come watch. I get to drive a tank or something. They did something that was fun for us. They made it seem like it was an exciting adventure. Little did I know that it was going to be one hell of an exciting adventure later down the road. And that goes hand in hand with the spiritual gifting. So,
yeah, I would imagine. Sorry, carry on.
There's some of the things that I did, unless there's operational detail out there that has already been released, I'm going to be really super elusive about it, just because I still feel uncomfortable about talking about some of that stuff to people who weren't there. But I can describe it to a degree. And we'll do that as we go along. I'm not going to talk about which branch, but if you've ever heard of the Christians in Action, they were involved. Bunch of the alphabet soup people, they were involved because of the GATE program. So they had a hand in this real early. Whoa. And some of the things that we did were just, it sounds like a fantasy book or something, but it was real. It was true. It happened. And the effects of what we did are reverberating to this day in the world you see now. And all those 20-something years ago now. So I'll mention locations, and you can decide for yourself if you want to remember that or not. But you'll see it in the world stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's becoming more and more apparent to us as we go along that, can you tell us how old you are? Just give us an idea of how old you are.
I'm too young to be old, and I'm too old to be young.
Okay. He's around about that age. Okay.
He's that age.
But yeah, I think kind of like what I was sort of getting at was that at the time that you were doing your training, it just seems to me that from where I'm looking now, there's a lot of people that are either these sleeper soldiers or have been these MK ultra kids that have been working, that have been trained in the military, stuff like that. It's coming out now more and more. A lot of this stuff is coming to the fore now, and it's in a big age group of, let's say, late 40s to early 50s. Do you think there's anything significant about that per se? Or do you think it was just at the time that the military was really experimenting and they had all sorts of gadgets available to them at that stage?
From what I saw, most of what we call high technology right now, they had that stuff in the 30s. They just didn't release it to us, mostly because they didn't understand it. They had to reverse engineer, they had to look, they They had to find parts and pieces. So I always say what we found was God's TV remote, and we had to take it apart and find out how it worked. And we were like, look at this fantastic machine. It's amazing. It's, oh my God, we push this button and this happens. Well, it's still just God's remote.
It sounds like what you're saying
Wow.
is some of the stuff that you found was of a higher technology, shall we call it that?
Oh, absolutely. The
Wow.
highest technology. I can't even describe to you what it was like to see some of this stuff. I know you guys have talked about underground cities and whatnot. I'm not going to name any of that kind of stuff, but I can tell you the places that I went to. You're talking kilometers deep, full of danger, full of all kinds of crazy things that you would never imagine seeing out here. And it was the point and purpose of it was to find technology. We didn't call it technology; they call it artifacts.
Wow.
So the artifacts, so now okay, you were sent by the powers that be, whoever was giving you guys instructions to find certain, and I'm going to say off-worldly. When I say off-worldly, I mean that really means not of known to us on Earth. Yeah, not common to us on Earth. So you guys were actually out there finding off-worldly technology by the powers that be. So you were sent to find this stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And we weren't just sent just as we are, just a few gifted people. There were enhancements that they gave us in the form of shots, implants. They enhanced our strength. They kept us from dying if we're wounded. There's all kinds of stuff that they did to us.
So what is a super soldier compared to what you guys went through? Is there a difference? Is this part of being a super soldier, or is a super soldier part of what you went through? What's the difference with that?
First of all, I absolutely hate the term super soldier.
Yeah.
Say that.
And how? Yeah. Sorry. Sorry.
I've seen other quote super soldiers talking about what they've done. It's like, wait a minute. Are you sure you really did that? Because I really did do this. You know, we went here and we did this, and there's a physical location for where I can tell you, you know, and there was a definite goal and a purpose. Now to say super soldiers, I'd rather say the German word Übermensch or supermen would be more fitting, because
Wow.
we were enhanced humans. I don't know if you guys ever had that old 70s show, The Bionic Man.
Yeah.
Or the $6 Million Man. It was not quite as fantastic as that. When I ran, it didn't make that noise. All I heard was feet pounding on the ground.
Clunk, clunk. That might have been a little bit disturbing. Wow.
It helped us to extend our ability to be underwater, to be in darkness, to be in heat, cold. There was all kinds of things that it helped us with. And I started to get those when I was 19 years old. And I didn't stop the treatments, if you want to call it that, until I was in my 30s. Well, actually my 40s. And until I was about 42, I didn't age. I looked like I was 18 still. I didn't age at all.
So part of these enhancers that they give you, I would imagine, as you say, would be, it stops you from aging, right? So you stay this like youthful. Isn't that incredible how they would also then do that with the adreno, right? So you guys get enhancers, the elites get the adreno, just for all this to stay young and strong, right? So the age thing. I would imagine strength, right? You would have had to be super powered, so you would have been powered up.
I was
More
4 times
smell?
stronger than average.
Wow. So more smell, more hearing, more seeing, more perceiving. So you really become like your animalistic instincts are enhanced to, let's say, their maximum capacity.
Oh, easily. I always used to laugh and say I could hear a mouse fart at 500 yards.
What is that
Wow.
like? I mean, that must be, I mean, explain to us what it's like living and operating in that enhanced state. Because, and then I also have a question. Can you turn it off? Is there like a button where you can turn it off to sleep at night?
There's an awful lot of times where I didn't sleep. I'd stay up for like a week or two to stay awake, continue to function, keep doing what you do. And it's super intense. If you were to drop into it right this instant, you might have a heart attack and die. That's what I could say. I'd say that of anybody. So there was a run up to it over a period of months to years. And I'm not exactly sure what they're giving us, but I know it probably had something to do with adrenochrome. Probably had something to do with some of these things that you hear about nowadays. But the intensity of it was, oh, it was addicting, first of all. I'm an adrenaline junkie to begin with. But yeah, it was, and we weren't, USA is not the only country that does this. Russia does it, so does China. Now, I will say we ran across a lot of Chinese, a lot of Russians in our time. So, but the price I pay today for all that stuff is I'm aging probably twice as fast as I would have. And my body's basically paying me back for what I did to it all those years. But
Yeah. Wow.
it's hard to describe that experience other than the fact that it's like a woman trying to explain to a man what childbirth is like.
Yeah,
Well, it
for sure.
hurts. It's amazing.
It's so,
It means a whole lot to me, you know.
yeah, exactly. Wow. That's incredible. And I know that we kind of, I know we want to keep it on an hour. So I'm going to wrap this up here tonight because I would love for us to carry on as we go on and just to let the viewers know. And I'm on YouTube, I mean, on Zoom, and I can see no one in the chat room. I don't think we have a chat window here. So usually I can see the viewers and stuff. But anyway, so I would love for us to carry on next week as we just continue your journey, what your experiences have been, where you're at right now. But maybe just in ending, if you can tell our viewers, just, I know in 2015, I think it was 2015 or 2016, you said you actually turned your back on a very destructive life. I mean, after all of that time, you turned your back, and what's happened since then?
Well, previous to that, I didn't walk away from it, but I had a God experience, for lack of a better term. And God became very real to me. And it's because I studied the Bible, and people, they can say what they want about the Bible, but it came to life for me. I was reading it just like another magical tome, and I spell magic with a K. That's the kind of practitioner I was. And we'll get into that. So people will learn that later. But
Awesome.
Had that God experience, was lured back into the lifestyle over a period of years. And then they finally just already came to me and said, here's a new BMW, here's a new house, here's a new woman, here's $10,000 a month if you come back. And believe me, that was tempting. That was very, very tempting to do. But I turned my back. I said, no, I walked away. And in doing so, the very next day, my credit cards were shut off. My bank account was drained. I lost the house I was in, started getting cars repossessed for nothing, couldn't find a job to save my life. It was very scary. And I had to run from one side of the country to the next, constantly being hunted. There's some good stories crazy stories, weird stories to tell about that. But yes, it definitely happened. And these guys don't forget. So I don't like to say that I'm still on the run, but in a way I am. I like to stay mobile, and I like to stay where I can at least see it coming.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, I want to just say thank you so much for sharing your story as far as what you have. And God bless you and keep you safe, because I think it's the people like you in the world that have been through such a broad and such a huge spectrum of a world that we know nothing about, but is happening and is very real, and it's here, and you've experienced that. And I so look forward to hearing the rest of your story, and as we continue for the weeks and months to come. So thank you for joining us, Caleb.
No problem. We'll get this internet thing sorted out so we can actually see the chat room.
Yes. And I can't believe it. It's been like, it feels like we only touched. I've got like a zillion questions, and I'm so curious to know.
It's 35 years. 35 years of experience that hasn't been talked about. So
yeah, and I know that this is the first channel that you're actually speaking up on. And honestly, it's a great pleasure and a great privilege to have you chat with us. So thank you so much. And again, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind closing for us in prayer as well this evening, or this morning for you.
Sure. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this time spent with some good people, and hopefully eyes are open, ears are opened. I ask that you bless our hearts with your presence, give us peace, and give us a good rest of the day or night, wherever we are. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Wow. Very, very interesting as we start our journey. Memoirs of an Invisible Warrior with Caleb Jade, who will be joining us. We plan for every Thursday, unless something happens on that particular Thursday. But I've asked him if he will pop in on some of my other shows as well. And I hope he will, because there's always, just in the time, and it's a short time that we've been talking, some of the stuff you've told me, and just the knowledge you have on so much stuff. I mean, music videos, stuff that we don't even look at, subliminal programming, the stuff that's happening in the different realms. Guys, this is a wealth of information, and I so look forward to our continual sharing. And I'm like,
You're just making me more curious now, and everybody is like,
tidbits.
Okay. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's like everything that's in the movies, like everything you just spoke about. I mean, I can see it in the Avengers, you can see it in the Justice League, all this comic books.
Yeah.
They've been doing it. They've been doing it since the World War I or II, and it's crazy. So I can't wait to hear everything.
Yeah.
Devil's in the details, they say.
Yes,
And that's probably why they say that.
Indeed.
Cool. Okay, guys. Lots of love to you. God bless you all. Take good care of yourselves. Like, share, subscribe, please. This is very important information to get out there. And we look forward to having Caleb back in the future.